Well, thank you all for being here at the kickoff for our year-long music exhibition. You know, Birmingham has a pretty amazing musical history, and we tried to touch on that during setting up our exhibit. So I hope you enjoy wandering through the museum today, but also please come back, because we'll be adding more content as we go forward during this year. And I guess I would want to say that at their best, museums really are just a form of storytellers. We want to bring things together to help people think about and remember their own stories. And I'm sure as you've talked to people tonight, or as you look at some of the exhibition displays, you're thinking about stories from your own life. And that's what we want. And storytelling is, in a way, what human life is all about. The older we get, I think the more we realize that. And so I'm really happy to introduce a couple of, I think, pretty major storytellers who have a few stories of their own to tell. Iconic.
That just came out. It was a thought bubble.
Just a thought bubble there. So first, let me tell you a little bit about Peter Werbe, who is seated to my far left. He is the WCSX classic jock whose history in Detroit rock radio goes back to the early 1970s. Believe it or not, looking at you, that's hard to imagine. Where he did stints on WRIF, WABX, W4, and Wheels. He has hosted local and national syndicated phone-in talk shows since 1970, making him one of the longest-running hosts in the country. Peter has a Sunday morning interview show from 6 to 7 a.m. on WCSX when he talks to interesting guests about today's important topics. Thanks for being here, Peter.
All on the left.
All on the left.
That's between you and I. I'm sorry.
And also on my left is Ken Calvert. Ken retired from the WCSX morning show this past December. He began his radio career in Detroit in 1973 and worked at FM stations WWWW, WABX, WRIF, and WLLZ, as well as WJRAM. He graduated from Brother Rice High School and was there during many seminal moments in rock and roll history, some of which you'll hear about tonight. He continues to do podcasts and a Saturday show for WCSX and writes for the station's website. So let's get this ball rolling, and please help me welcome Peter Werbe and Ken Calvert.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you, Leslie. I'm going to say that my chambers have a couple of venues, and Gary will remember these, the Hideouts, and of course the Birmingham Bloomfield Teen Center.
Something different.
Yeah, something different, and the Palladium. And those were great venues for us here in Birmingham. I saw some incredible bands at the Palladium. I saw Rod Stewart, the Original Faces. I saw Sly and the Family Stone, the Harvey's Bazaar. Gary, you could probably run them down better than I can.
I played a bunch of them.
You sure did.
Birmingham played there.
Yeah, that's right.
Like you said, the Faces with Rod Stewart.
And
it wasn't a big room.
No, it wasn't. And Punch ran it with an iron fist. I mean, if he caught you doing anything wrong whatsoever, he would revoke
No fights, no BS.
Yeah, that's right. And he would revoke your actual pass, take it away, and then you could, it was like, no pass for you. 2 years, no pass for you. But, at the time, too, being in high school at Brother Rice, see home, the Battle of the Bands, of course, and there were so many bands at the time. The entire trend line had moved from just being the Fugitives, or whatever the case may be, to being more of a British sound. There were a lot of groups.
You want the list of the Fugitives time? It was like the Chosen Few, the Fugitives, the Marauders from Groves. I don't know about Rice had its own rock.
HP and the Grassroots.
HP was the first black guy to go to see him.
Introduce this guy.
Oh,
Gary Quackenbush, ladies and
he ain't here.
From SRC.
I mean, I was too funny, but I did all those gigs.
But of course, they had a hit record here in Detroit that charted at number 7 at CKLW. Went to number 7, and of course, that was a Cream song.
The Battle of the Bands, I played the...
Well, that's where I was in the government.
The first Battle of the Bands was at Shane Park. It was a geodesic dome. It must have been about 63, okay? And it was great. The Steve Lyman, who ended up being in the SRC, had a band, the Downbeats. They blew us off the stage.
Well, that was just it, because it was always a rotation, but a lot of the same bands would always come up each and every time because they'd rotate them from Groves to see
Right.
Brother Rice. And it seemed like whoever the judges were, but I remember the Tappers Five was a smaller band,
Yep.
but they had a great drummer by the name of Peter Crane, and they did just an incredible version of the Tokens, The Lion Sleeps Tonight.
Oh my God.
So as the cut down would go, 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 they would say, and everybody knew it was coming, that The Lion Sleeps Tonight was coming up, because he could nail it. Yeah, he had played the drums, and he also sang the song.
Falsetto,
so he had
everything.
that, whatever, I can never go there in a million years. But I do remember the brothers at Brother Rice High School, for example, they would look over the set list after a while, because two of the songs they refused to let bands play, and if they played them,
Gloria.
they took the Gloria. Yeah, and the other one was Brown Eyed Girl, because of the fact that they would sing Making Love in the Green Grass behind the
Oh
stage.
my, how disgusting. How filthy.
Yeah, so they would absolutely knock that down. But so that's basically, so from Brother Rice to the various, the various venues around here, which the venues included high schools, the Hideouts, the Palladium, the Birmingham Bloomfield Teen Center, and then of course the Mump up by Northland, where I used to hang out a little bit too. And of course there was always the historic, and you could talk more to this, Peter, the Granby Ballroom. And I want to mention one thing real quickly about Peter, if I can. Peter and Russ Gibb, of course, was the famous or infamous founder of the Granby Ballroom. And the Granby is, when we said iconic at the very beginning, that was an iconic venue. Scary venue, but an iconic venue, but everybody played there. And Peter Werbe actually boycotted the place when the Who was going to do Tommy for the first time in its entirety. And Russ Gibb raised the prices by $1. And $2. I wasn't even aware of that.
Scandals.
But what you did, Peter, at the time, was you boycotted people, and you got together with Russ Gibb about, what, 2 years ago?
Yeah, I interviewed Russ, and he came in, and I said, yeah, I remember you from way back, and he said, yeah, I remember you, you called me a capitalist pig. This is going to be a great interview. And he had raised the prices from $3.50 to $5.50.
Yeah.
There's $3.50 to $5.50. Well, the radio stations that Ken and I have been part of have also been part of this whole scene. And today, when someone becomes a radio announcer, a DJ, a disc jockey, they've usually gone to the Specs Howard School of Broadcasting or some of the broadcast schools at the university. And I'm curious how you became a DJ.
I went to a small Catholic college. I went to Catholic grade school, Catholic high school in 1 year, actually 1 semester at Catholic college, and I said, that's it, I'm out. I can't do it anymore. I can't see any more nuns. I can't see any more priests. I can't do anything. But the one thing Aquinas had was it was a radio station that was FM Underground After Dark. So I tried out for the radio station, and the guy came back out after listening to my tape, and he said, do the industry a favor and never get into it. That, I went home and I wrote it down. And I thought, no, okay. And I remember trying to find the guy about 20 years later. And I said, I found him and I wrote him a letter and I just wrote, you want to compare paychecks. But it was just a great way because I mean, for whatever reason that drove me, and I'm going to make this as quick as I can because this is truly a great story in terms of my life. I went to OCC, WORB, small radio station. If you took 12 credits, they had to give you 2 hours on the air. I worked with this woman from Oak Park by the name of Randy Stenberg, who now goes by the name of Randy Thomas. She went to W4 because of her incredibly good looks. She managed to get every interview she could get, and she got them. And she got on the air, and she said, you're missing this guy that I worked with back at WORB. That was my first chance at W4 to go down. The program director and I had an interview. We went to Belle Isle. I won't tell you exactly what we did, but we enjoyed, I don't know what it was, some chicken and something else. I forget what it was. But we did watch the freighters go by. And I remember you could light it.
Good.
Yeah.
Quite sure what
Well, I just wanted to let you know about that. We went back to the radio station and he said, listen, you're an incredible guy. You've got a great set of pipes, but I'd be doing the industry and you a disservice if I were to hire you. because you have no experience being on college radio, and albeit a very brief period of time. I said, I totally understand. I went home, told my buddies who I was house painters with, and they were all like, hey, you the man, you the man. You know, I got the interview. Guy called me about 2 hours later and said, my all-night guy just took a leave, man. He's out. I need you tonight. I'll pay you $50 to come in and do a 6-hour shift. Don't go to bed. So I stayed up and I did the shift, and when I got off the air the next day, the guy said, how would you like to do Monday through Friday, 6 to 10, and Saturdays, noon until 4? And I was like, okay. Let me see if I got this right. So that's how it all began. I went to W4, and then I had to follow my idols, people like Peter here, and of course the original air aces, and you'll tell them more about that.
Yeah, just quickly, how I began doing a talk show. At some point, the radio stations were informed by the Federal Communications Commission you couldn't just sell beer ads and have the music that told kids to smoke dope, or that's what they thought. So they had to put in public affairs broadcasting. So I was hired to do an hour show. And then at one point, Dick Kernan, who is now head of the Specs Howard School of Broadcasting, was the program director at WRIF. And he said, can you do 11, same thing, can you do 11 a.m. tonight? And remember, we used to have those things, what were they called, records. Remember that? And there was some talent to getting those on the air, because so they didn't go, right? Or they didn't all end, cold. And so it took some doing. So I said, well, I'm not sure I know how to do this. And he said, well, Jerry Lubin will tell you how to do it. So at 11 p.m., I go over there, and he said, okay, these are called pots, potentiators. You go here, you put them in, he said, I'll see you later. I said, what? So it was a tough 5 hours, but that's really how I got into it. I don't know how fast time is going, but I want to get this story about Chad Smith on, and I know there's at least a couple people that would like to hear this. And this, Ken told me this before, and this is a great story, so why don't you tell it, Ken?
I did the Detroit Pistons for 16 years. I was the public address announcer, and that was another one of the really stupid things that I ever did, because I made a guy a bet. And I used to go to a lot of Piston games, and the guy that was doing it at the time was a guy with Gary May. And Gary was like, you're a Detroit Pistons. Please welcome your Detroit Pistons. So I turned to my buddy and go, well, ladies and gentlemen, your Detroit Pistons. And so he goes, it's pretty good. And so he said to another guy, he said, I know Matt Doback, I'm going to tell him about you. He said, you'd be perfect for part-time. And I thought, oh God, another one of these all-night type shows. Well, I did it a couple of times, and at the time Joe Dumars was the first-round draft pick, along with Dennis Rodman. And so I remember one of the things that I did early on in the exhibition season, my first year, was I'd say, ladies and gentlemen, Joe Dumars, thinking that people would get the Lou Piniella, the Lou Whitaker, and the announcers would always say, oh, they're not bullying him, no, they're going Lou, they're going Lou. And the whole idea was it was a point guard, which may be a little confusing to some, but as he would dribble the ball up the court, I was hoping the crowd would go, ooh, never happened. Never happened in 16 years, but the Joe Dumars did stick. Each and every night before the game would start, ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to ask you all to please rise and join us and remove your hats as Dr. Tim Coldiron will perform God Bless America. Well, one night, it was a Sunday afternoon, as a matter of fact, we were playing the Los Angeles Lakers, and it was a big-ass game, pardon my language. And so Chad comes out, and there's a drum kit sitting there. And I said, what are you doing? He goes, I'm doing the national anthem. I said, how? He said, on the drums. I said, I love it. And so all of a sudden I said, this is great. I said, ladies and gentlemen, please welcome home from the Red Hot Chili Peppers to perform our national anthem tonight, Chad Smith. And his drum kit's out in center court. He gives me the obligatory, And he I don't know how he did it. But I heard the national anthem. About 18,500 people kind of were just like,
It's great.
But it was brilliant, and he got a standing ovation, and it was just one of the greatest moments of my life to see. I mean, because it's never been done. I don't think it's ever been done since. The only other time I saw people that aghast with anyone was when Ted Nugent did it, and that was a wild guitar. But that's
Thank you.
Chad is probably one of the nicest human beings I've ever known, going back to the Toby Red days. And I mean, just one of the really dear guys in rock and roll. And I've always said the bigger the star, the nicer the guy, and that comes from the tree. The apple doesn't fall far from the tree. So congratulations.
Thank you. I have a little thing to add to that.
Can I just give you the microphone?
Okay. When we were going over to the arena, my husband was driving, and Chad was in his jeans and long hair and looked like a hippie. And my husband said, you know, if you have any trouble getting in, I will vouch for you. Chad said, no. Isaiah asked me to do this, no trouble. Well, we get to the desk, and they said, what are you going to do? I'm going to play the Star Spangled. You're going to do what? And they just looked at this kid, you know, and Kurt took over, my husband, and he said, yes, he really is going to do it.
Well, it was wonderful, wasn't it?
Yeah, it's my favorite. All the concerts I've seen, I never saw him play harder.
Oh, I know.
And I said at the time, you know, you shouldn't be nervous. He was very nervous. He said, but Mom, I've been with the whole band. Now I'm just one person. And he was really nervous.
Oh, I bet.
Yeah, but I love it. It's my favorite one, so thank you.
I'm glad I remember doing it.
Thank you for bringing it
Because I
up.
told Peter.
Do you have any idea how that got set up? It's such an unusual presentation.
Isaiah.
Yes, through Isaiah.
Isaiah.
They were friends.
Really?
Yeah, they were at a
So
game together.
Isaiah Tom?
And Isaiah would say to Matt Doback or to Peter Scorch, I mean, that's behind the scenes, beyond belief, but he would say, we want this guy, and if Isaiah said he wanted somebody,
You got
Yeah.
it.
you know, I mean, he was the captain, he was number 11, you know, from Indiana, Isaiah Thomas. I could do them all for you, but I'm not going to. One of the things I was going to tell you about is that there's a picture, and I don't mean to point myself out, but there's a really great picture of myself and Bruce Springsteen and Bob Seger backstage at Pine Knob, and I want to say it was in 1978. And I was working for Bruce Springsteen at the time. I left radio to go to Columbia Records, and I was doing what they call A&R. And I would travel with different bands all the time. So we had an off night with Bruce Springsteen, and we were playing the Chrysler Arena the next night. And so he said, Kenny, what do you want to do? And I said, whatever you want to do, Bruce. I said, you're the boss. I said, the Seger's playing Pine Knob. He goes, Bob Seger? I've never seen Bob Seger. So we get in this tour bus and we go rolling out there, and the gates are locked backstage at Pine Knob. And so I said, screw it, I'm going to jump the fence. So I started to climb the fence. A couple of security guys, bad dudes. What do you think you're doing? What do you think you're doing? What do you think you're doing? Billy Blackwell, who's Bob's longtime road manager, recognized me, and they said, who are you with? I said, Bruce Springsteen. He said, get out of here. I said, no. So he said, well, come on back. So he said, he said, Bob's just about to go on. Just about to go on. Come on back here, come on back here, come on back here. So Weschler sees us, and he's like, I got to get to the city. And so Bob and Bruce and I are in this picture, and Weschler goes, poof. And I was like, I must have waited 5 days. Please come out, please come out, please come out. But then he took another one of just Bob and Bruce, and the entire world has seen that picture. I didn't even put that on that. But that was probably one of the greatest moments of my life. I mean, just that photo. And that night, Bruce got up with Bob, and the next night we went up to Chrysler, and Bob did Born to Run with him as an encore.
And the photo's here.
And so the photo is here, so that's one of the things that I wanted to mention to you. And I know you guys have a timeline.
You mind if I get philosophical?
Oh, I wish you would.
Yeah, all right. Rock and roll began as sort of outsiders music, rebellious, and now it's become mainstream. Good, bad, doesn't matter?
That's a really good, God, that's a great question. I think I miss a little bit of the revolution. I mean, I guess it was a little more, I would say, thought-provoking than, I would never consider myself to be a revolutionary. But I do remember people finding things in songs. And of course, I remember, what was it? There was a Jefferson Starship song, Beware of 1984. The summer of '84, when the whatever will come alive. I mean, we were starting to worry about 1984 back in 1975. But I don't know. That's a good question for you too, because you came into it loaded with passion. You were the editor and the publisher. I don't know if you were the publisher of the Fifth Estate, right?
Yeah.
Did you make any money, or was that a free paper?
Well, where's my wife here? I guess not. Yeah, I was making $30 a week one time.
Is that right?
Yeah. And all the papers I could sell on the street in front of the Grandee Ballroom.
I think the part of the revolution that I liked was the fact that the magazines, I think the Rolling Stone,
Cream.
Well, that's where I was going. But they all had thought-provoking articles for us to read. And they were solid, and they were honest, and they made you, really think about yourself, and at the same time think about listening to the music and maybe even giving it a second chance. They helped us discover a lot of things. We all remember that the Pontchartrain Hotel downtown was the rock and roll world headquarters. I mean, I left more brain cells there than any place ever. But Cream Magazine was right above the Birmingham Theater. Midtown Cafe was right downstairs. And I remember there would just be a group of us that would meet there almost every single day. And it was just, I mean, wax poetic, friends. If I could only get on that, if I could find that ship and go back in time, I would be all over that. They were just incredibly exciting, wonderful times. The birth of Pine Knob, seeing Joe Walsh, the first rock and roller there. It was just, and to this day, the romance that is radio, that is rock and roll, is something that I thank God for.
I can't add to that. I wonder if some of you have some questions or some comments, observations? Don't let it die, folks. Come on.
What about you guys? I mean, do you remember any of these venues?
I remember that we played the Grandee 17 times, and I didn't really realize it until I got a look at the poster book. It has all the posters from all the major ballroom venues in the country, including San Francisco. We played there 17 times, more than any venue in the MC5.
I remember talking to, who was I talking to? There was I forget the band, a big band too. And the Grateful Dead had played the night before, and they brought a bunch of goats with them. And they almost wouldn't go on because of the fact that the smell was so bad, just from the goats. But I mean, there was even then the Grateful Dead had to walk on the wild side. But,
I was in Russ Gibbs' office at the Grandee Ballroom when Big Brother and the Holding Company, Janis Joplin, and she was one tough cookie, and suddenly the door flew open and this rage came in. And I can't even say the words she was saying. If you ever put that, what are the balls called? What were those?
Disco?
Mirror ball.
Disco balls?
mirror ball.
Mirror balls. There was another word. And apparently they couldn't, trying to play and get cues and all of that. And we're just, okay, we'll shut it off, By the way, on March, I can't even get, somebody has it, I think it's March 22nd.
22nd, Scrimshaw's benefit.
Yeah, March 22nd is
At New York.
New York.
It's
That's
at the
right.
Premier Center.
It's in the Premier Center. There's going to be a tribute and a benefit for the late Gary Grimshaw, this incredible poster artist who talk about iconic, whose images of that era and of the Grandee and a lot of other places is going to be there. And who's?
It's me, Gary Quackenbush from SRC, Scott Morgan from the Rationals, Dick Wagner from the Frost or the bands.
Yeah.
But there's going to be stuff after that too. And they're going to show the Louder Than Love
Yeah.
Randy movie.
The Grandy Ballroom
So
story.
it's
is
going to go
be
from like
shown,
6 o'clock on.
Yeah.
And there's tons of cool stuff to be auctioned off.
Yeah. Is anybody collectors here of rock memorabilia?
By default, yeah.
Doug Podell, WCSX's afternoon DJ, has put together such an incredible array. Got all these donations because apparently there's still a lot of outstanding expenses that Laura Grimshaw, his widow, has incurred. Yeah, sure.
I just want to comment, piggyback on that. We have 4 samples of Gary's work on your way out. You can see them if you want to take a look. In the area where WCSX has their materials, there's a long buffet, and above the buffet, you see a poster and 4 of Gary's handbills for the Grandee. So you just get an idea of what wonderful work he did.
Oh, Grimshaw there were 2 great ones, Grimshaw and Carl Lundgren. Carl Lundgren is still doing posters. He's doing the poster for the Grimshaw thing. He's doing the poster for me when I play every Thursday at the New Wave Art tonight. And it's amazing. He's been doing posters for me and SRC for over 40 years.
Now, Grimshaw's posters, particularly some of the early ones, are worth hundreds and hundreds, some of them thousands.
A friend of mine had 10 of them. His mom hid them under the bed. We sold them for $3,000 a piece.
Oh, well.
There was Gary Grimshaw's Zebra Man #3, the first one, the 3rd poster he ever did for the Grandee in '67. Very iconic poster.
Well, we used to get one, my wife and I.
I had them all. They
Every-
stole them.
Well, I just, Marilyn would say, isn't this last week's? We'd say, yeah, and throw them out.
Yeah.
Right? Because it was last week. And I remember talking to Claire, and they said, you did what? And I said, if it wasn't for people like me, getting rid of them, they would only be worth about $10. So, yeah, you should thank me.
There was a bunch of that too, because there were at one time one of the really popular things the very first thing, and I think I'll end with this too, was that my romance for radio, and I was telling the mayor this, was that my romance began when I was just a kid. I knew immediately I wanted to be in radio because of Lee Allen on the horn, and there were so many great jocks on the air at the time: Swingin' Sweeney, Rutland Seymour, Joel Sebastian, and but Dave, and they all had these great routines that they would do. But I remember that Lee Allen had a thing called Lee Allen Make It or Break It. And I don't know if you remember that, but Lee Allen each and every night would have Make It or Break It, and he'd put a record on. It was based on us, the kids who called. And I begged my parents, please have a phone, please have a phone, I gotta call Make It or Break It. But that was the beginning of the process for me. And that was really, and when you talked about the revolution, part of the revolution was the crossover from top 40 to underground radio.
Very few people made the transition as DJs. None of those cats that you
Well,
mentioned.
Shawn Michaels did. He changed his name back to his real name, Sean Conrad.
Okay, well.
Yeah, but I mean, very few others did.
Those other cats were gone.
I totally agree with you, but I remember, and I will end with this, and I swear I will end with this. First of all, I want to thank each and every one of you for coming out and being so attentive, and hopefully I didn't bore you to tears. I would like to especially thank Mrs. Smith, and thanks to Chad when you talked to him. Please tell him that Ken and Peter said hello. But I just remember my parents dropping me off on that corner right there. And I'd say, I'll walk it in from here. Because there was nothing cornier than having your folks drop you off in front of one of the venues. I mean, I wanted to be a cool kid. So as you work the circuit, if you talk to people as they come into this wonderful museum, my first visit, shame on me, make sure that if anybody offers anything up like that Palladium card or the Birmingham Bloomfield Teen Center card or any hideout posters or any of that, please, Leslie, tell them that you guys could use it, because that can also, like I said, that's to me the crossover from top 40 to FM radio. And I'll never forget, there was a Sunday morning when they said, due to an identity crisis, WXYZ-FM will from now on be known as WRIF.
Baby.
Yeah. So with that, my friends, I say thank you.
Yes. Thank you very much.
Thank you again for our guests.
Dick Kernan.
It does look like Dick Turner.
You look like our first program director.
Yeah.
Oh, that's good.
That's good.
That's actually very
Great,
good.
thank you.
You started Spec Hour, he's doing very, very well.
We appreciate all the support you've shown the museum this evening, particularly with regard to the Bell Project. These fundraising efforts need to be ongoing. Bob Seger wrote that rock and roll never forgets, and I guess we demonstrated this evening that Birmingham has not forgotten rock and roll. Enjoy the exhibit, and thank you again.